Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. This topic today is definitely something we know a little bit about. It's the pros and cons of social media, not only for, we hear a lot around the pros and cons for teens and young adults and children, and mostly cons, right? Um, but thinking about social media for women as well as their children. And I do think there are some pros when it comes to that. So we're going to
Yeah,
kind of start there, right?
right. And yeah, and we're going to talk about the cons, obviously, because that is huge. Um and women in particular, because we work with so many women. And I've always been a little bit surprised how often it comes up. I kind of tend to think, if I think of the people in my life, I have a lot of very dear friends who aren't at all on social media, or they might have a Facebook account that they never check. So I kind of tend to feel like they're into it or they aren't. But
Sure.
especially when you and I were working together and we were working with a lot of women, we didn't know before that. Like we had a lot of students with HCI. The amount of times it came up as something that was just really hard for them, like
Yeah.
really difficult. Either they were just way too afraid to kind of be there,
Hmm.
or it brought up, and necessarily, because it was the work they needed to do, it brought up all their fears of being
Mm.
judged, all the negativity they feel, all the compare and despair stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the more and more, like, I've kind of had my dance with it, because I don't totally love it. I don't hate it though either. The more I've had my dance with it, the more I'm finding out that even my friends that aren't on it, some of them are for reasons that feel negative for them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we started to touch on this last week with the episode around breaking up with your phone or swiping right on your life, which I love.
Uh,
Um, So social media. Okay. So as I think I said last week, I probably got my phone in 2010 and I pretty much immediately got on social media. And I know there's a movement that I'm not against in any way, shape, or form of like never putting your kids online, especially when they were little, but I never did that. I've always had my kids on, and most of the reason, especially at the beginning, was that at the time I lived in Chicago and my family lived in Ohio, and so it was and both my parents got on Facebook, and so it was a way to share daily what was going on with them and show cute pictures and stories, and then of course as we moved to LA, it makes me feel connected to all of my friends all of the time. I just did a post 2 days ago because for some reason my phone still thinks I'm in Chicago. So I get weather alerts from Chicago, and Chicago was having this big, like, horrible storm outbreak. And so I'm just getting tornado warning, tornado warning. So I went on to social media and I said, I'm thinking about everybody. Let me know how it goes. Plus, I got to go onto social media and look at all my friends' accounts and see that everybody was safe and there was a tree down here or whatever. So to me, it's the connection piece more than anything else. And so I have never not liked social media. I understand why people do, but it's always been I've always loved it as a tool.
yeah.
Facebook in particular, and I know that shows my age, but like Instagram, I could take or leave. But I think I'm enjoying Instagram more lately. But that's a platform that I lurk on much more than
Hmm.
I post, and Facebook I'm much more active on.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we'll start with the positive, because you kind of went there already, and I know that you have a positive relationship with it. I always look to it as like that's healthy, and it's interesting too, because I don't think you'll mind me sharing this. There's times where you're like, oh, it's hard for me to like stay in touch with someone who's not checking Facebook, because that's how they're going to find out what's going on with me. And I
Yeah.
remember a very opposite, also understandable sentiment. I saw my cousin who, he's in a prominent position. He's the head of a company, and very private about his personal life.
Hmm.
And he, made a post once that's like, you don't know me because we're Facebook friends.
Sure.
Like you can't say that you know me. And
Yep.
and it reminded me of all the, like, every don't compare your insides to someone's outsides. Everyone's putting out the image they want or the things they want to share. Not everybody's as just transparent as you are, right? So so to remember that, to like the ocean, don't totally turn your back on it and expect that everything is face value and everything you're going through really sucks extra because everyone's having this great time. People aren't putting up their, the hard stuff usually. So
Right.
so I do appreciate that there's ways to have a healthy one. I agree with you. The connectivity for me, I think it was 2008 that I went on. So it was before I don't even know, before it was on my phone. I think I figured out how to have a Facebook account because I have so many cousins and it was a great way to connect and like see pictures of their kids and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of sweet, and my aunt and uncle were getting on it and things like that. And immediately that and LinkedIn, people that I had stayed in touch with were like suddenly finding me. And that
Yeah.
was kind of cool. Like I am now because since 2008, however many years ago that was, 16 years ago. Wow. I have been connected and to people from grade school that I wouldn't have otherwise been reconnected to. So I am
100%.
grateful for that. And then as it became something that was like somewhat of a tool in my work, building my own business, but also the work we did with HCI and the things we needed to do professionally in private groups there, I realized that there are some people I work with in the middle of Saskatchewan who would be so isolated if it
Hmm.
weren't for the community that they were able to find in social media. So for all of that, like I am grateful and I have a huge dose of like healthy appreciation for it. I do.
Yeah.
I also think, depending on what you follow on social media, you can filter in some educational stuff. I think we can get to the negative stuff about how our phones are designed to make sure you're only seeing the stuff you agree with. We'll get to that. But I do think you're going to broaden your awareness of all your choices of things when you're shopping for like, someone to work with or some company or some great tool. Like you're going to hear from people you trust and like what recommendations there are. You're going to learn about things you might not learn about otherwise. And it's being filtered to you through people you trust.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love the part about community. I just saw a reel the other day from a guy I follow on Instagram, and he was sharing a story about having lunch with one of his followers. It turned out to be someone he knew, lived in or didn't know, but lived in his community. They went out to lunch, and she was sharing that she had lost her son to suicide because he had been bullied. And as she was explaining her story, he was saying, God, I really relate to all of that.
mhm.
And she was sharing that, she has been very angry and conflicted because unfortunately one of the bullies of her son that passed was her other son, and so there's just a lot going on
Mm.
there for her, right? And
Yikes.
yeah, it was a very powerful story. And he said the only reason I'm sharing this is she told me I could share the story as long as as I say this like one thing, and it was that she has found a lot of community. While
Mhm.
she's not out there broadcasting her story, she's been able to go through social media and find support and
Yeah.
community herself in a way that, without social media, she might not find, so
Mhm.
social media has actually been very helpful for her. Um, Now, the obvious side effect is like maybe social media was not good for her child. Who knows? They didn't go that deep. It felt like it was more in-person bullying, but
That's interesting. Sorry, I just
no,
cut
no,
you
no,
off,
go
didn't I?
ahead.
I was just
No.
going to say, like, you're reminding me, and I'm overdue. Every once in a while, I will do a big post on social media about Griffin. I'll update
Mm,
people because, for a few reasons, right? For the same reason you do, some is like it's a great way to update everyone at once without individually reaching out. And
right.
sometimes we are just completely spent in the middle of like hospital stay or something. So I have gone there and I have received so much support, prayer, love, like
Yep.
so much. I mean, the joke side of that, it's not the negative side, but the joke side is that you've seen me also do these, like, hey, I don't need you to sell me a product for seizures. We've looked at all of them,
Right.
but
Right.
but thank you and no thank you. I don't, yes, I've heard of CBD, those kind of things, but for the, like, even those people are well-intentioned,
Sure.
but
Yep.
it's such an infusion right away of love. And
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how much that means in the middle of like, oh God, this is what happened. This is where we are. And people just pour in the love, and it is genuine and it is so sweet. And I wish social media was really purely that way, and you didn't have to like go through a million ads and things that are, geared towards you, which we
Which
talked
is
about last week. Like,
getting worse and
I want to
worse.
see what my friends are saying, not, compare neck creams, but, but I definitely, there's that. And then something you said just reminded me that, my niece and nephew were just old enough to have a Facebook account, like, middle school or high school,
Yeah.
something like that, when their parents divorced, and they both posted there, and it shocked me at first because I was raised to be kind of, like, you don't go super public with stuff. I don't know, like that was shocking at first. I was a little bit like, and immediately saw this love and support and connection and relatability that was happening for them. And I thought, oh, that is so great that they like tried that and received something that they needed,
Yeah.
like, this is sad for me, it wasn't a super like, really horrible thing. I mean, they had these two parents they loved, and they decided to split up. I mean, it was a horrible thing. I'm not saying, I don't mean it like that. It wasn't a big dramatic post is what I meant to say.
Right. Yes.
That's what I mean to say. And it was just sad. They were just sad. And they got a lot of love and support. I've never asked them if that helped. So I'm not saying I know that it helped, but I
Right.
witnessed it with a lot of, like, oh, that's so interesting. Their age is so like, this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that is great too. Like, if you're looking for support, like, Griffin has a very rare form of epilepsy, and I found a private Facebook group for people whose kids have SP10-1 mutation, right? So you're right, you can find support. So I think you were saying the negative side of that is some really negative people can also find some support with each other and galvanize too.
Well, no. What I was saying is this woman had this experience and she was able to
Yes.
find
Oh,
support,
gotcha.
right? What I'm saying is I don't know if the story is, but one of the negatives, and maybe that's what we do here is we
Yes.
go back and forth, right? One of the negatives is the anonymity on social media allows for people to say the quiet part out loud in a way that it's not just bullying in person anymore. It's bullying online. And then the flip side to that is you're bullying yourself when you're comparing and despairing, So
Mhm.
there is it is interesting to me, one of the other pros, and this is based on a couple of articles that you found. It says finding your voice. And I think now this in some ways circles back to what you were just talking about, right? Like there are
Right.
people who share everything, right? And they do it as a way to share what's going on in their life, and they really share the tough times as well as the good times, and they get the support and love that they need. That's their voice. And no one should judge if that's the way they decide to show up in social media, right? And then there's people, I think I do a little of both. I do tend to share mostly good things, I think. But I don't shy away from the bad stuff. I remember when we had Stacy Peasel on at the beginning of the year, and I'll never forget her saying at one point about social media, because she and I were on stage at one time talking about social media. And I never forget this. She said, you get to decide how far back you pull the curtain on your life.
Yeah.
And that is your decision. And if you pull it all the way back and show all the skeletons, because that's how you process grief or loss or even trauma, so be it. And if the person's reading and doesn't want to read that, scroll on by. And if you choose to share mostly good things and then the occasional bad, which I think is the category I fall under, great. That's my choice. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to show a unicorns and rainbows life. I'm showing the totality of my life. And I'm not against sharing when things are hard,
Yeah.
but I'm not necessarily, I'm also very cognizant of Darren and Charlotte and Liam. I'm not going to share things that they're going through that is not my story to tell,
Unless they let you.
unless they
Amazing.
let you. I mean, the kids are funny
Yeah.
because they have been on social media, my social media, forever. I mean, since they were little. And so I have never had the experience where they've said, I mean, I've had the experience where Charlotte will be like, that's a horrible picture of me. Take it down.
But like
But
she didn't mind that you said she's going through a breakup.
no, no, no. She
Right.
didn't. I mean, she kind of hard eye rolled, but then immediately goes, well, what's everybody saying? So she
Totally.
loved the feedback and she wanted the
Right.
support, right? So she sees the value of it. I've joked about this before, but I mean, all three kids, we joke, are Facebook famous because people come in and they've never met, like if they're coming over my house and they've never met my kids, and people call Charlotte C. I only call her C online because I'm too lazy to write out Charlotte. We don't really call her C, but I have people that do that all the time,
Oh, that's funny.
yeah. And
Did you
and
just say our three kids?
did I?
Yeah.
I bet Irina. She's not my kid.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, that's so cute. I was like, we have 5 between us. You don't
No,
have
I
3.
meant
Like, I don't know.
did I say our three kids? That's
You
so
did.
funny. Well, because Irina's the same way, right? Like
I
Irina
think
is
everyone listening was about to feel really sorry for the one that you never talk about. But Irina does feel like your kid. You're right.
yeah,
That's
she
so
does
sweet.
feel like my kid. And
Yeah.
and same thing, people will meet Irina and they feel like they already know her.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'll take a quick moment and say she's right now, this is coming out in August, this won't, or September. So this is long gone, but we're filming this, recording this in July. She is in Belarus right now. And we all agreed, like, we can't tag her in anything. Like, it's not safe for her to be sharing stuff and us to be sharing stuff because she's in Russia,
Mhm.
or Belarus, same diff. And so it is interesting, we have shifted based on the fact that she's not in the States right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's all three
Yeah.
kids do get kind of a kick out of being Facebook famous.
So some of the negative things that I would say, and some of them are kind of funny, but to that point that Stacy said, it reminds me of something that I heard Brene Brown say on, I think, the Netflix show that she did way back, was like, because she talks a lot about, obviously her shtick is the power of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And somewhat of what Stacy was talking about is like when you're building a business, or you're wanting to do something professional online, but you also have like a private, I think everyone needs to understand that people will go to your social media if they're looking to work with you professionally. So
100%.
to really understand, you don't have to be super personal there, but if there's nothing about you personally, people aren't really going to connect with you.
Yeah.
And so I remember when Brene Brown was talking about, to connect with people or be a leader or, build something, vulnerability is really important
Yep.
for people to relate to you. She's like, but there's a difference between that and, it's like sharing, like, who you are as a mother or who you are as a person and what you care about. That can be vulnerable. You don't have to live tweet your bikini wax. Right. So I'll just never forgot that. Like, true. And I think that so many, we were talking about influencers earlier, but so many people who are in that category, they are influencers because they're just so open and transparent. And we have a lot of reality shows that are that way too, that works for them. And that is a way to go. And a lot of people, including me, find that, like, I'm not into that. I don't need to see your bikini wax, but,
right.
But so some of it I think can be like, you choose it or don't choose it. No biggie. That part's not negative to me. I just don't tend to follow it. What is negative to me is, like, I think I've told you before, I don't realize, like, until I see it once in a blue moon, that, like, oh, there's like a whole bunch of people like who try to friend me that I don't know.
Yep.
Now we might have a lot of mutual people in common because of different places I've worked or, organizations I'm part of. And once in a blue moon, like the ones you and I have in common, or, like that we're students somewhere that knew us, but we don't necessarily know each other. Once in a while, I will accept them. And sometimes, like, just like last night, immediately they start coming into my messenger and they're like trying to sell me something. And it's like, this is why I usually only accept people who I know, because I'm not looking to, be sold to. This is
right.
It literally says friend. If we're not friends, why should I say yes? So I go back and forth on that. But also what's negative for women is people look at it as a potential dating site. And so like all the friend requests that men do for women, and it's so funny. It's like, you have no one in common. you don't have much of a profile. Like, who are you?
Well, I
It's
think those are
so
bots.
funny.
I don't
Yeah,
even
you're
think they're
probably
real
right. You're probably right. But I do think every
because
once
they're
in a while
always
they're
in the military,
real. That's true.
divorced or widowed. They love dogs or cats.
Who
And they're
doesn't?
always, and there's always lovely pictures of them hugging their dogs or their cats. I mean, there's no way those aren't bots. I don't think I've ever been friended by a man I didn't know who was real. You
That's
know?
funny. You're reminding me that like they do those, private Facebook groups when people are going into college and,
Yes, I'm on those.
yes. So I remember my sister being like, why don't you guys get on those? Maybe you'll find a roommate. And my sister's kids are so not that, especially, at that time, those two
Yeah.
older ones, they weren't into that at all. And it was funny. And my niece made a really good point. She was like, they're all on there like, I love dogs. Who doesn't? I love like everything they say they love. Like
Yeah.
you'd be an asshole if you didn't love that. Like that tells me nothing about you. And
Right.
I think it's a healthy way of going, okay, there's a way you might make a connection, but you're not going to really know people unless you really know them. So is that negative? Maybe not. However, the negative parts that I have seen for women tend to, be at every age. It is like social media has brought about this left out belonging thing. Like
Mm,
all people need love, safety, and belonging. And so being on Facebook and connecting with people might feel like a sense of belonging
mm,
until you see people doing something without you.
yeah.
So I've experienced the pain of that on the other end of the call with clients so many times. I've seen it with friends. Another place is like someone lost their mom. They not hate, but they have so much pain on Mother's Day seeing everyone else spending it with their mother, right?
Yep.
Um, then there's obviously the cyberbullying, the mean comments.
Yeah.
Again, back to your point about bots, sometimes those are bots and trolls, but that's really tough for people who are trying to make a connection. Um, so, and also I think the comparison of like, my kids are doing this is my
Hmm.
vacation. I heard Melissa McCarthy say that once, that she's like, it's so weird. It's like, do you like my vacation? Do you like my Christmas decorations? That's how she sees
Yeah.
social media. Like, can you like what I'm doing, please? And I'm sure there's a bit of that can be tough. And I think what it reminds me of is, and maybe there's an argument that Pinterest is this way more because I'm not really on Pinterest, but I remember when I first got married, was having kids, everybody was into Martha Stewart and her magazines and wanted to do, birthday, but this is pre-prison,
Hmm.
wanted to cook like her, set a table like her, throw a
Yeah.
party like her. And we didn't have a million images we could go to and Google for that. It's almost even more so now. Social media is a bit of that now. It just constantly makes you feel like you're not measuring up if you look at it that way.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I think I'm not going to say I'm not blaming the victim, but I think there is a choice in that, right? So I do post a lot of that stuff and and there's been times where, especially I haven't as much this year, but especially when we first moved into the Apex where we live now, we have this amazing view of sunsets. And so we would just get we still do. We get these amazing sunsets and I'd post them. And
They're
there was
gorgeous. I love them.
well, that's just it, right? So there was a part of me that went, does anybody really care? But inevitably, it got a lot of likes. Again, I don't care, but I'm always surprised. And then I realized I have friends in Chicago that live in high rises right on the lake, and they post sunrises.
Yeah.
And I love seeing those,
Yeah.
so I have to remind myself if I love them, somebody else loves them. And if you don't love them,
Absolutely.
scroll on by.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'm putting a picture. I guess my come from is never about um look at me, or look what my kids are doing. If I'm sharing about my kids, I'm proud of them, right? Everything I've ever shared about Charlotte is because I'm just like losing my shit that she's doing all these great things. It's not about like my kid's better than yours. I have other friends whose kids are in theater in Chicago. I love looking at all of their stuff too, right? My come from is never look at me. It's more like, here's what I'm doing. And if you
Yeah.
like it, great. And if you don't, great. I don't
I'm
care.
I'm so glad you say that, because what I was describing as negative is the perception of the viewer. Like
Right.
somebody going in and not appreciating that, like, hey, you can scroll by, you can unfollow people if their happiness is somehow, triggering for you. Like, you know what I mean?
Correct.
Like
Yes.
you can
Yep.
opt, but you have no idea what the intention was. And in most cases, it's just like, hey, here's what I'm doing, here, or like if people are sharing, and yet the effect it's having sometimes is interestingly negative. I think where you get into teens and young adults, it's much more clear that it's like there's a lot of things targeted around body image,
That's true.
around, the like visual kind of stuff and external kind of stuff that feels really mean and targeted, and we have to get really protective about it and help our kids be smart about it. I do think, for women, it's just bringing up the stuff that's also happening for them in real life, right?
Right.
Like, am I good enough?
Right.
And I feel bad about myself by comparing. It's a place that's bringing compare and despair right into your phone, into your home. But
No question.
you get, just like we do with our kids, we get to choose like what we filter in and what we allow, and be honest about it, how it affects us. Don't feel bad about it.
Well, and I also think so going back to the neck creams. It's so interesting because yeah. That's why I wear necklaces. It's so fascinating to me because I look at these things, and I've bought some of these things. I definitely have, and some of the stuff I really really like, and it's like, okay, this is my new skincare regime, no problem. And some things I bought and they've been complete bullshit.
Yep.
But it's so funny to me because I go in and I'll see one of these things, right? And they're not even really ads anymore. They're disguised as posts. So you look, and I'll always go in and look at the comments. And of course, every comment is glowing. Everyone, oh, this is great. I can't believe I didn't have this before. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I guess I just know those people are also paid. And I'll use a different example. So I have a friend, and I won't say who is a public figure on Facebook, right? And when they are promoting something, I have noticed that there are people coming in and commenting. And I go the last time this happened, I went to look at each one of these people because I'm like, that's cool. And these people didn't exist really. Like they were, I don't know that they were bots, but I feel like I somehow have gotten
like they created an account just to do that, or
they
something.
are paid to do this, right? Like I am on some email list. I don't know how I got on it, and I can't seem to get off it, where I keep getting these people saying you can make money by posting, by reviewing, by blah blah blah.
Yes.
You can make $750 by a day doing this, right? So these people, that's what they're doing. They are paid, and I have no problem with it because it boosts that person's numbers, and that is fine with me. But it's funny to me because if you are not thinking critically about what you are seeing, and you look at one of these ads and you see, oh my God, everybody loves this, think critically about this. You may still choose to buy that product. I have bought plenty. I have clothes I've bought. Some have been fabulous. Some I put on and I was like, what the hell is this? What is this? And it goes straight to Goodwill. So think critically about what you're seeing, not only the ad, but the comments beneath the ad. They are still ultimately ads, even if they are being disguised as posts. So I think, maybe that's not that we're done talking about this, but maybe that's the overall giveaway, not takeaway, but giveaway about social media. Think critically. Don't just assume that everything you're seeing is absolute truth.
Well, yeah, it goes for the personal posts and the
Exactly.
things you might purchase. And I've told you before, like actually, if you go into my feed, the majority, besides the funny things we send each other, because I like the majority of things that I follow, like or that I'll scroll by, have something to do with like pets or like funny, memes that, like about middle-aged women maybe, and then also lots of recipes, which just sounds so boring and funny, and I don't know why it feels embarrassing to admit that, but like there's lots of recipes that are coming up there. And then also, a lot of like ads for things that are aimed at middle-aged women, right?
Totally.
So you're absolutely right. That plus like when I can catch anything that my friends are posting, like all of that is up to me, whether
Yes.
to like trust it, believe it, be happy, like buy it, whatever. It's all up to me. And I think it's interesting because I think Liam's done this. I don't know about Charlotte, but definitely all three of my kids will completely take these things off their phone when they realize
Yes.
like it is sucking their joy. And when they feel really low, when they feel really agitated, one of the first things they know to do is take Snapchat and Instagram off their phones. They're
I mean,
not
it's
really on
literally
Facebook.
called doom scrolling. That's what the
Yes.
kids call it,
Yeah.
And yes, that's exactly right. Liam will get on, he'll enjoy it for a bit, he'll post some stuff about his art because, one of the pros can be a place to build your expertise and your authority, especially if you're using social media in some form as a marketing tool. Anybody who's ever worked with, I don't think that social media is a good marketing tool. I think because you don't have control over what people say or see. But so he'll get on and he'll do some of that, and then he will find himself doom scrolling and wasting time, and he takes it off. So yeah, Charlotte, I don't think ever has, but she just has so her public page, she doesn't do much on. She has a lot, both of the kids, I don't know if your kids have this, but they have what they call spam pages, or close friend page. I think she
Insta,
posts
secret
on Insta.
Instagrams. Yeah.
Yeah, spam or close friends. And so I think she does a lot more posting on there than she does on the page that like I can see. And she uses it for direct messaging. I don't think she uses it nearly the way I do.
Yes. Right. Um, with us being in an election year, one of the stats I came across in the article, the one that was pro cons, like, did you know social media sites are one of the top news sources for 46% of Americans compared to 66 for like television / news,
Yep.
radio, that kind of thing. Okay. No, 64. I guess I was saying 64 for the rest. Okay. Students who use social networking sites while studying scored 20% lower on tests, and students who use social media had a GPA of 3.06 versus non-users who had higher GPAs. That's interesting, right? So I don't like, this is all what is the source of this? This is from botanicaprocon.org.
That's interesting.
Says it's nonpartisan. It's very,
I feel like
curious.
the GPA piece, I wonder if it's tied to falling down the rabbit hole of just
of TikTok.
wasting time.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
like
you're wasting time with TikTok.
Yeah,
right.
you're not actually studying or working on your stuff. I don't have any thoughts or
But
feelings
here's this
about
one. 81% of teens aged 13 to 17 reported that social media makes them feel more connected to the people in their lives. And 68% said using it makes them feel supported in tough times. So that goes back to what we said. But back up to the political thing is the one of the pro cons, like the con is it encourages the spread of misinformation. Absolutely. Yep. And if you don't know this, please know this, that your phone and social media are going to work together, and anything that is smart, quote unquote smart, in your house is going to work together. Oh, I didn't know air quotes brought, like, that makes no sense.
Oh, and now balloons. Wow, you've got a lot of celebration going on over there, Carrie. So again, for people not watching YouTube, somehow Carrie did air quotes and she got confetti and then she got balloons. So that's what we're laughing about. See if we can get the heart. Yeah. Nope, no heart. Yep. Okay.
Yep, no hearts. So if you don't know this, anything you're plugged into, Alexa, your phone, social media, is going to make sure that you keep getting information that you seem to already agree with, the stuff you're looking for, the stuff you like, so if you believe something, chances are you're going to get a ton of, and I'm putting air quotes up, I might get confetti for that. You're going to get a ton of proof that you're right. So it's designed to really like kind of, go wide with whatever you're looking into. So please know that you're going to get misinformation. Most likely you're not going to get like the full picture. Right. The pro for it was social media encourages civic and political responsibility. I agree with that too. How would people know about marches and things that they could do? So again, this comes to like a healthy relationship with it. Know that it's like walking, it's like preaching to the choir.
Yes.
It's designed, especially if you're really joining groups that you agree with, it's designed to be supportive of like an area of thinking, not maybe one way, but an area, like a leaning or something. But also, you're gonna find out from people, if you're connected to people you respect and like there, you're gonna find out about things you might not find out about otherwise. I always use that as a prompt for me to go look it up and like see what's happening, like go to a
100%.
reputable like non-paid news source and find out what's going on. But so I think that that's true too. Like being in an election year, be careful what you believe on social media, but allow it to direct you to find out more.
I mean, agreed. I mean, I immediately think of the Arab Spring. I mean, that was completely orchestrated over Twitter. You know,
Yeah.
all the support around Black Lives Matter. I mean, I don't think we would even know about George Floyd had that very young girl taken out her phone and
And
filmed it
posted it,
and
right?
posted it, right?
Right. And look at
And
how many things have been exposed because people had cameras in available.
100%.
Right.
But you're right. I actually last week talked about this on the things I know. Again, that would have been back in July. But um, there are if you are going to get pushed what you believe, and not all of it is true. You want it to be true, but you have to go and do the extra step, the due diligence before you go and share something. And I remember this really around both 2016 and 2020. I had a friend, and unfortunately he has passed since then. Um, and I respected this guy and I love this guy and I still do, but he was always pushing Occupy Democrat stuff. And Occupy Democrats sits on the bubble of misinformation, And so I was always loath, and I didn't push that to my groups or my Facebook page until I knew what it was saying was true. And it's not a quick find sometimes. You have to. I posted something last night that said it was coming from NPR. I wanted to make sure though, because deep fakes are huge these days.
Right.
And I thought before I push this forward, I'm going to make sure this is real. And unfortunately it was. But it's but I mean, we are where we are because we have gotten into what's the word? A mentality of a group think, right? And our group is right, and we think our group is right, and they think their group is right. And we have lost the ability in many ways to have the conversations that we used to have but so-and-so said this, Occupy Democrats said it, Fox News said it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and then we stand in this disinformation like it's.
Well, and then the facts get lost.
Totally.
And then actually facts don't even matter anymore between like these, the extreme right and extreme left. Like nobody's mind is going to be changed by facts anymore. That's so sad. And so like, I don't know. I do. This is remind me of something I know you've been through and I know I've been through. And it is like, what's the word? Not decorum, like what's the right, like the kind of right behavior, like courtesy, I don't know. There's a word for it. What's the proper behavior on Facebook? Like etiquette, that's the word.
Yeah, yep.
I don't know if this is true, but my feeling about it is this. If you're feeling strongly about something, I come from Orange County. Like I have people I love in my life who are more conservative than others. I have extreme liberals like extreme, leftists, and then a lot of people, kind of moderate or pretty liberal Democrats and some Republicans, right? So like I just happen to be related to a lot of people. I think between you and we definitely get feeds from all sides. So I know this is going to happen, right? But I don't go to someone's page. I don't go to like where they are, having their little, I don't know, their little outbursts or something. Yeah, and like start bullying them. I don't go
Mhm.
there and start like, belittling people who are commenting on it. Now, if I share something as innocuous in my case as like a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, maybe not innocuous, but I mean, come on. I think it's really I don't think it's cool to come there and start belittling like people who are supporting her and then getting into like, why they're wrong. I
Yep.
just remember thinking like, I don't go to your page and do that. Don't come to mine. And also everybody I know is coming for you now,
Well, that's
like
just it. I mean,
so
I
good luck with that.
yeah, I mean that is, you're right. That's exactly
People
what
who
happened.
were on both sides of the aisle were also like going, that's ridiculous. So it's kind of interesting. I
Well,
just think like, ugh. And this is one of the reasons I don't love social media is I don't love having to monitor or facilitate like people being ridiculous.
yeah, I'm always it hasn't it's happened to me a couple of times. Um and I'm always shocked by it because because it doesn't happen very often,
Right.
so I think for those of you who think, oh, if anything I put I'm going to get trolled on, it actually hasn't happened to me very often. But when it has, I am always monitoring is exactly right because you're right. I say something, my beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
my page, like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we're public now, but my page is still private, right?
Right.
And so the people that are on there, I have invited in, and great.
And you make no apologies. You say it all the time. This is
All
who
the
I
time.
am.
This
If you don't
is
like it,
my page.
unfollow me.
Scroll
Yeah.
on by, unfriend me. I have
Right.
no attachment to that outcome. In fact, I invite you to
Right.
do that. I've already said it several times
Please opt
in
out.
this election. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in this election cycle, and it's going to get worse. And but I do. I'm always then saying to each person that's coming in to support me, like, thank you for doing that, but also like, let's stop this, right? Like, you're not going to change that person's mind, and she's not changing my mind. So let's just nip this in the bud. Now, you could argue that I could take the post down. I choose not to, because again, my page, my
Right.
decision, my body, my choice. My page, my choice.
I wouldn't
But
argue you should take it down. I just
no,
think that's where things can get negative.
yes. Oh, 100%.
I mean, again, I mentioned the recipes thing. I was so taken by this woman in her British accent. It was so funny. Someone sent this to me and says, watching the recipe, and it was like ridiculously sweet thing that I would probably never make because I'm not really drawn to something super sweet like that. But it was fun to watch, and she was funny. And you would not believe the comments people were like trashing her for sugar and corn or in vegetable oil. And do you know how bad that is for you? And I loved, she had the most sassy responses. Like she was just like, I mean, short of saying fuck off, she was kind of like, I don't care.
Right.
I'm not a like nutritionist. This is a
Yeah,
recipe. Move along. It's like,
totally.
what is wrong with you? She just started like responding to it. And then I like thankfully she stopped because I thought like, don't even get into it with these idiots. But like, who are you people that are mean to someone who shared a recipe? Move on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
right. I
what?
mean, but that's just it, right? The anonymity, and everybody's in their own corner and they think their way is the highway. Or is the way, I should say. And so they're just they that's to me the biggest problem with social media
Yeah.
is the anonymity.
Yes.
In a pre-social media, we would have kept our thoughts to ourselves. We would not have there we wouldn't have the opportunity, but we just wouldn't have done that. and
Mhm.
and in the one instance for me, I did physically know the person, but the one that went so off the rails on Instagram earlier this year was insane. I didn't even know who this person was. And when she finally stopped bullying me on or attempting to bully me on the actual post, she went to my DMs to bully me.
I
It
remember
was
that. Oh,
insane. I was like, dude, I don't know who you think you're talking to, but this is not affecting me in any way, shape, or form. You are looking like and that's the thing too. I'm like, you look like such an idiot. By
yeah.
what do you think all of a sudden you're going to tell me your views and I'm going to change my lifelong views? Come
And
on.
that gets into another topic which we could cover on another pod. I haven't said that in a while, but
I know.
is it's just such a cheap shot, and it makes you look so small when
Yeah.
when you don't have an argument, so you go after something about someone's appearance or about their
Yeah.
gender or about their age. It's just so like it just shows your IQ.
Oh my
Shows
God,
your
that's right. I
character.
forgot that what she started to complain about ended up bullying me about the way I look.
Yeah.
You
And
both
then
said I was 70 and I looked like I had a lot of work done. I was like, you got to
yeah,
pick one. You got
yeah,
to
which
pick a
one?
lane. I either have had a lot of work done or I look 70. I don't know. And
Yeah.
I'm 54. So what the
She was just
hell?
grabbing at whatever could be mean.
Oh my God, it was so funny. And I find too that sometimes that's a lot of that goes back to the compare and despair, right? Like again, I don't know this woman, she doesn't know me. I don't know why she came at me. But like you're projecting on to that person too. Like your own it's like when you're going at somebody like that, they're trying to justify their own existence and
Yeah.
and belief system, right? And my point, and I kept saying this to her, was like, you're not changing my mind. I don't even know what you're doing, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And it's just it's such an indication of how like hurt people. Like
A
people are in
100%.
pain.
Yep.
They are lashing out, and it's the
Yep.
easiest, weakest thing to do is
Yep.
to like not put yourself out there, but rip on everyone who is. It is
Yeah.
so small, and we know that. And I think even the people who kind of start to get affected by it know it, and they maybe are investing in some support for themselves. But like that's the thing that's been added to our plate with our kids. Like, yeah, we had those magazines that made us feel bad when we were young, but this is 24/7 access to things that
Yep.
can make our kids feel bad. And having a healthy awareness that like so much of this isn't real
Yeah.
is important. It's so important because it really like I there's a woman I follow. I love her. She is a history teacher, Sharon Say So, and she's really good and factual about the history behind things that are happening in the Supreme Court. Like she'll go on there and answer questions. And she has won awards as an influencer who's really
Mm.
educating people. And she has said the amount of people in that category who are out there creating content who have become suicidal because of the
Yep.
haters. She's
Yep.
like, these are not people who were raised to be used to that. And like, it's not even like actors deserve it either, or
No.
politicians deserve it either. But like definitely just be kinder. Remember there's actual humans
Yeah.
there when you're making these comments and you're saying such horrific things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not once did I think to myself, do I look 70?
Yeah.
But you have to have a healthy sense of self. And I think that's what it comes right down to, right? Like if as a human, man, woman, or child, you are struggling with a healthy sense of self, social media can have an incredibly uh detrimental effect on you.
Mhm.
So
And
how do
people can, sorry, this is just something I heard Brene Brown say recently because she's come back, but
yeah,
a little bit.
a
She
little
said,
bit. Yeah.
you can take a clip of anything and make it sound a certain way.
Yep.
And so it's really, and you have no control over that.
Nope.
And so you can get really misrepresented too. So there's that. Okay.
Yep.
So
And deep fakes, I mean, that's a whole
yeah.
nother ballgame.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate it in a way that serves us versus not serving us?
I think there's two things. One kind of goes with the phone thing. There's
Yeah.
like looking at the amount of time you give it, the time and energy you give it, right? I talk a lot about Byron Katie and those 4 questions. Like, what's the thought I'm having? Is it true? How do you respond when you believe it? What would you do without that thought? That really applies here. Like,
Yeah.
what is the feeling I'm getting from this? What's the thoughts I'm having? Like, are they even true? Like, how can you separate yourself from it? And how can you observe without judging yourself how it's affecting you?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that leads to you setting some boundaries around the time you'll give it. So I think that's one.
Yeah. The curating a positive and
That's
uplifting
you.
feed, that is, I try. Um,
You do it for the
again,
pod too, and it's great. So if you're looking for a positive place,
yes, follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
yeah.
Um, so I think, yeah, and again, curating a positive feed, not spiritually bypassing the shit that goes on, but like even now, as I'm starting to re-enter into the conversation about the election on my page, the things I know, even though I tend to pull in the pod, but I'm also I can't not talk about this because I've done this for so many years. Um, I know for a fact that people look to what I am saying and follow my lead. It has been told to me many, many times. So I do feel a sense of responsibility. It's my beliefs. It's the things I know. So you get to take it or leave it. But even as I'm doing it, I'm still trying to come from a place of forward movement. Action. I'm not talking about the election from a place of doom and gloom or complaining, right? I'm saying, here's what's happening. Here's how I'm experiencing it. Here's what I'm going to do. And if you're experiencing it the way I am, here's some things you can do, so positive and uplifting doesn't necessarily mean, again, unicorns and rainbows, but it's what you appreciate. So if I sit in the doom and gloom,
it's proactive.
If I sit in the doom and gloom, that's all I'm going to see. That's all I'm going to feel. So I do come from a place of what can we do to go move forward? How can we help, essentially?
Yes. I think that's excellent. Well said. Another one is open communication between parents and their, adult and teen children about social media use. I think that's important in terms of like, is the whole family okay with what's being posted? And you guys seem to have a really open conversation. It's funny. My kids don't post a lot. So, we haven't talked about it in a while, but we're all connected. If I post something, I tag them and they're like, thanks, mom. Love you, mom, like in the comments. But one thing, I think I've brought this up before, and you certainly know this, without talking about it, that there was those 6 weeks in Hawaii in Maui where in 2020, where I figured out how to get us there. And we just had, like, we got there and kind of were like, oh my gosh, stay really quiet. But we didn't talk about it. I didn't say, don't post anything. But afterwards, when my niece was like, how come you guys didn't post anything? And I said, well, I was sharing a couple of photos with you and with friends. And we admitted, we felt like not everybody, is able to get out. Some people, are really having a horrible time right now.
Right.
This was us kind of pulling a win, and everybody would have been happy for us to see it because they knew what we were going through with Griffin, and Brennan had some paid leave to use. And, everyone who did know we were there were like, oh, so happy for you. That looks relaxing. But I think we all admitted, like, we felt a little like we just felt like it was going to feel mean-spirited to post it. It's interesting.
I think it wasn't, but I also think that was a way for you made your family, conscious or unconscious, made a decision on what felt safe for you guys.
Yeah.
Right. And you were sharing with the people that you knew without a shadow of a doubt would be happy for you. Yeah. But why put yourself, I know that when I say things, I steel myself for blowback.
Yeah. I did not fear blowback. That's interesting. They might have. I can't speak for them. Because around that time I was hearing from people that were feeling really bad about themselves. I didn't want to be like, banana. And that's something.
Okay, silly. So maybe it's unseen blowback. You were feeling empathetically, like, I don't want anybody else to feel bad about themselves because I was able. All the things fell into place for you guys. You didn't do anything weird to get out of here and go to Hawaii. It was literally all the dominoes fell into place for you. But again,
and I worked my ass off to do it.
100% worked your ass off. But that's the thing. It's that it goes back to the compare and despair. Yeah. Nobody knows that when they look at somebody and they think, oh, they're being successful in A, B, C, or D, they don't know what it took to get to A, B, C, or D.
True.
Right. And so there's that aspect of it. And I think you were empathetically thinking about, it's not about the blowback you're going to get. You just don't want other people to feel like less than. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I've since then I realized, like you said, I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like
it's a weird time, 2020.
Yes. It's to genuinely share, the rising tide, it just lifts everybody up. And in times right now, there's a lot of things to be, in despair about. So any light you can share with people is uplifting.
Yes, I
So
agree. I
anyway,
agree. And can be empowering. Like they
yes,
could look at that and be like, "Ooh, what a great thing she did. What can I do in my
yes,
life that fulfills
yes,
that, you know?"
yes,
So instead of assuming the worst when you're posting, assume the best. Assume people are going to get something out of it.
yes, and yes, absolutely.
So then the last thing around social media is, and you and I both do this, is building supportive, empowering online community. Now, our pages, both on Instagram and Facebook, the Things We Know pod, are public, so they're not private Facebook groups. So it really is our voice only. Someday we may change that, but right now this is just the way we're showing up on social media. I do, yes, I curate it and I mean for it to be funny and uplifting and true and authentic to you and I's voice.
Yeah.
Um, but we are not here to diminish any woman, no matter what age she's in. So if you are finding that you are part of groups or following pages or people that are not serving you, let them go. You
Yes.
can unfollow, you
Unfollow.
can unfriend,
You can
nobody,
block.
you can block for 30 days. It's there's lots of ways. I remember my mom used to worry about unfollowing people. She's like, what if they figure it out? I'm like, you don't get an alert that somebody unfollowed you. You know, you might go and see, ooh, I have one or two less friends or whatever. But if, in my mind, if they let you go, they weren't meant for you or you weren't
Right.
meant for them. It means nothing about you, you know?
Yeah. I would say also pay attention to the groups you are part of. And if you're formed in some form of shared negativity, it's going to
Yes.
affect you. Let
Yes.
go of that. Like really, let's all try to be part of things that are up, like that are supporting, like let's support women. And if you really don't feel that, like maybe step out of the conversation. But anything that's uniting you in hate or criticism is eroding you too.
And I'll just add one other thing because I want you talking. We've shared a lot of personal stories here, but you saying that right now makes me think of an experience I had that I appreciated, and this may be a way to handle something in the future. So we've talked about going publicly on somebody's page and trolling them or sharing asked for advice. Um, I full honesty, full transparency, year and a half ago, some pictures came out of Madonna and my reaction was like, oh my God, what is happening there? And, it came from a place of not really judgment per se, but just sort of sadness, quite frankly. I think Madonna's amazing and beautiful.
Mhm.
And I was just shocked. And
Mhm.
I commented and I made a comment. And our dear friend Elijah pulled me aside virtually,
Mhm.
over, but DM'd me, texted
Mhm.
me, and said, here's how this looks. Here's how this makes me feel. I don't think we should be judging women in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So
Mhm.
I appreciated the come to
The
Jesus
calling
around that.
in, the
The
calling
calling
in.
in. Right. Instead of calling out, like she called me in.
Yeah.
And I think about that on a regular basis. It doesn't mean I don't see things that I don't think, "Roosh," but I no longer feel that's a me thought, and I get to
Yes.
keep it to myself, you
Yes.
know. Um,
Yeah.
Now there are some literal hilarious things that are happening right now in one part of our political spectrum. I have
Mhm.
no problem calling that out. But, when it comes to supporting women,
Mhm.
I think, it's
Yes.
it's very important to call in and not out. That's a beautiful way of
Yes.
saying it.
Yep.
Speaking of supporting women who like to call in, you picked the song today, so would you like to
Yes.
say it?
Yes, I didn't pull the lyrics, but I don't know anyone who
Oh,
doesn't
I
know the
do.
song.
Well, I have the
You
lyrics.
can say the lyrics. It's Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. And to be honest, it was the first one I thought of. I didn't do a deep dive think about it, but I love that. I love the whole idea that like people were commenting and making fun on social media wherever she would stand up and dance while listening to other artists. They
Yes,
were
at like
totally
the
making fun of her. It's
Grammys
like
and
here she was like being supportive and getting into it, and people were making fun of the way she dances. And so I love that she just decided to kind of respond to the like haters gonna hate.
Well, that's just it. It's because players gonna play, haters gonna hate. I'm gonna shake, shake, shake it off. Heartbreakers are gonna break, fakers are gonna fake, but I'm just gonna shake, shake, shake it off. I obviously truncated that immensely. But yeah, I mean, and it does come down to that. You know, if you are feeling like social media is not serving you at any given time, you can take it off your phone. You can energetically stand up and physically shake it off. You have choice. Social media is not a contract we are in in this human experience. So choose what makes you feel good when it comes to social media.
Love it.
That being said, make
right.
sure you follow our social media.
Yes. For some positive experiences.
Yes.
Yes. We're all about the humor too. All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode. I like this. I feel like we could keep going on and on, but this was great. I think it's a good beginning of a conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, get on our social media, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You could reply to us there, but really you could just email us at the things we know
Podcast 23.
podcast23@gmail.com. And we read those. We will reply.
Yep. That's our personal email.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Carrie, for once again bringing this topic forward. It has been a good one. And again, probably one we'll revisit over time. So thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.